Hello, ladies. Welcome to another Confidence Leads to Success interview with me, Elif Köse. I have got Zoe Whitman here with me. She is a business coach and accountant and co-founder of the Six-Figure Bookkeepers Club. Right, you heard that right. There is a club for bookkeepers only, and she is passionate about helping accountants and bookkeepers to raise their profiles, charge their worth, which is very important, and build businesses that give them the flexibility they need. She's also the author of Know Your Numbers. It's a guide for small businesses who want to take control of their finances. Hello, Zoe. Welcome.
Hi, oh my goodness, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I'm really excited.
It is so good to have you here. Do you know, I really wanted to interview you because how you turn your passion for accountancy and become a coach to help other accountants to create that financial freedom while letting them charge their worth. It's really good. And a lot of businesses seems to struggle with that. And I know for you, it's all about niching to grow your business. And I'm going to ask you all these questions I have, like how niching will help you grow your business. But I want you to tell us a bit more about you before you go into more business.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Thank you. I'm really excited. There's so much to talk about, isn't there?
Yes.
I think we're going to cover some really important things as well. So hopefully it's helpful for everyone watching. I'm an accountant by training. So I've been an accountant forever. It was the thing I did when I left school, and I've worked in lots of corporates. I spent a long time actually in local government while I was training, and just bigger businesses. So I didn't do what you would think of when you think of the kind of accountant or bookkeeper you might bring in to support you with a small business and your finances. I didn't do that. And I got to the point when I was sort of in my mid-30s and I had my daughter, that I realized that the role I had, which was in a large bank at the time, we worked very long hours. We worked late nights if it was quarter end, and we'd go in at the weekends sometimes. And I just didn't want to be doing that with children. I was really quite worried about how I was going to be able to get that balance. My husband works full time as well. And I realized that something had to change. And so as I was sort of getting ready to go off on my maternity leave, I was doing all of this research into, how can I do something with my qualifications that I've got to run my own business? And I think I've always been quite entrepreneurial, and I've always had lots of little ideas and little hobbies and side hustles and things, but nothing I ever took particularly seriously. And like I even thought, oh, maybe I could be like a personal trainer or something, so I'd gone everywhere with this. And then I came back to I've got an accountancy qualification, but I've never worked in a practice setting. So the kind of thing when people come to you and say, will you do my tax return or something, I was never that kind of accountant. I didn't have the experience, so I didn't believe I could start a business doing it. But I started doing my research and I worked out how I could make that happen. And I actually had a nice I had some opportunities to start taking some clients on. My husband is a designer. He's got lots of freelancer connections and people who find numbers quite intimidating. So people were asking, oh, could Zoe do my tax return? And I was always saying, oh, it's not really, I don't really do that. So I thought, well, actually, there are people here who want to pay me money, and this can give me the flexibility. So while I was on maternity leave, I started a bookkeeping practice, and I did help people with that kind of stuff, and I started to get some clients. But being very focused on financial security, I'm an accountant, and I really, I had a nursery bill to pay as well. I was like, well, I need to go back to my job. So I never took my business seriously. At that point, I thought I still need to rely on the bank to pay my salary. So I went back part-time, kept some clients on the side, and grew this business. And it just was crazy. Like I was getting so many inquiries, and I was like taking calls in my lunch hour and like on Sundays. And my husband said, how much money are you making? I think you might need to just choose to do one of these things. Should you be running the business or should you be working for someone else? So I started a business and felt actually quite alone doing that. I felt like, we know how to do the technical part of running, like doing the accounts for people and the bookkeeping, but I don't really know. I suppose I'd positioned myself. I created this niche, which we can talk about in a bit, with this sort of creative sector, and I'd worked out how to do that. But there was no one really talking about that in my world, and it didn't really feel like I had the support and the community, or anyone really to go to. Like if anyone ever said to me at a meeting or something, I'm an accountant, I'd be like, great, can I ask you a question about pricing or something? So I was really trying to like work the network that I could find, but I just couldn't find somewhere that I belonged. So I built this business. I wrote a book about know your numbers to help the people that I knew were feeling very intimidated by the numbers. And then I met a lady called Zoe Wood, who's now my business partner, and she runs her own practice as well. And we got together, and she had this idea for a way to support bookkeepers with growing a business. And I was like, this is exactly what I need right now. And we got our heads together, and it's taken a few years, but we've been growing this community where we can support people like us who want to have a safe space to ask the questions about how do you price, how do you find clients, how do you grow your business, how do you bring other people into your team, and all of that stuff. So not focused on the technical, because there's lots of help with the technical, but with the business part of running a business. And actually that business has grown. Obviously we've had the pandemic in the meantime, and I had another baby. So I brought some people in to run my team. But during the pandemic, it was very challenging I had a 3-year-old and a not quite 1-year-old at the beginning of the pandemic. And I decided to take a break from my business. And during that time, I actually did some other work in an accountancy practice. I focused on the 6-figure bookkeepers club. And then that has just grown, I suppose, because people have seen during the last 2 years that they need to be more flexible, because you just don't know when schools are going to close and when you're going to need to be at home homeschooling again. And employment, the traditional world of employment doesn't allow for that kind of flexibility. So we want to support people, and I think lots of women particularly are setting up businesses to get flexibility, but they are then compromising. They're saying, I want to run a business so I can be with my kids. But they see that as a compromise. Well, I'm removing myself from the sort of traditional way of working, so I can't be worth as much as someone else who works in a job. So I'll like go in with a low price. And this creates this like race to the bottom of pricing, particularly in the bookkeeping world, where you could probably search on Google, find loads of like basic minimal hourly rate, or whatever you call it, minimum wage
Yeah.
People, to come and do your bookkeeping, because people don't see the value they add to businesses. So my role through the 6-figure bookkeeper is to help people to see they really offer a very valuable service. And it's okay to build a flexible business around your family, because that's life. So I'm all about.
I think that's the thing. I love that you say that. A lot of people seem to forget that whatever business that you're running, there is a human being behind those businesses, and they have got a life, they have got families and emotions to manage. So when you're working, I think we're being given this impression that everything has to be absolutely perfect. The hours has to be as expected, 9 to 5, but it's not really that way. It's a mindset thing, isn't it?
You have to design it. You can have a business that works however you want it to work, but you have to at some point say, this is my framework and this is how I've set my business up. And you have to communicate that with the people you work with, because otherwise, of course, they're going to expect you're a 9 to 5 business, but there's no reason why we can't change things. The more of us who do it, actually, the easier it is for everyone else. So
it's so true. So true. I always said when I started my business, I used to close on Mondays, and people used to just go, Mondays? Why do you close on Mondays? I just said because I want to close on Mondays to do my banking, and all the banks are open. I can't have a weekend off because all the things that I want to do, the banks are shut, and all the other things are shut. So I decided to close on Mondays. So all my customers knew by their heart that I was closed on Monday. They learn, they adjust.
Yeah, I have my son on a Monday. I talk about it on social media. I've got my son today. I'm not working. We talk about it in our community. They know that. We bring other people in to run things for us on Mondays because I'm not available. Jo runs her other business. It just becomes expected, and that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. So I know I asked this question, but you decided to niche with your business, and it helped you grow your business. But the burning question most entrepreneurs, especially at the beginning of their businesses, but how do you do that? How do you get to that niching, because like you said, once you're an entrepreneur, you're multi-passionate. There's got so many things, so many ideas in your head. But how do you actually narrow it down? What are the questions that you ask yourself, and those answers led you to that decision? I'm
Oh.
sure it will help. I mean, I know there's so many, but I'm sure it will help to listeners.
Yeah, and do you know what? I suppose I've niched twice. So when I ran the bookkeeping practice, I naturally had this network of creatives around me who needed support. Whether that was the right niche or the way to approach it, I might have thought about that differently with what I know now. And obviously I niche with bookkeepers. Like, I'm a business coach and I could talk to any small business. If you want to talk to me about niching, I can talk to you about niching. But what is best is to talk to this community of bookkeepers around me, because that's where I'm known. And we'll talk about becoming a key person of influence. I think that is the power. When you can raise your profile in a very specific area, that is when you get the exponential growth that you want for your business. So in the bookkeeping practice, what I did was I had this community of people that I knew, and my husband went to the events, the designer talk things. I'd go and be there, and you'd have a chat in the hallway afterwards, and people would say, what do you do? And then I'd say, well, I'm actually not a designer at all, and I'm a complete imposter. I'm actually an accountant, and I run a bookkeeping practice. and that would help me stand out. So when they were then later thinking about their tax return a few weeks later or whatever, they'd be like, oh, hang on, I met someone, so just naturally showing that I get their world was a really good introduction, and I suppose they would think, oh, well, she's his wife, and, she sort of gets us, and that makes it more friendly and maybe made me more approachable than your traditional high street accountants firm that they would think they would need to approach. So I think the starting point is look at who you already know. Like, who is in your network? Which groups are you a part of? Which communities are you a part of? And then think about where your expertise is. Like, what are you really, really good at? Because when those two things cross over, that's when you've got a real zone of genius. So I went in with I know lots of freelancers, and lots of people want their tax returns to be done. The problem with that is that's actually quite a low fee paying job. What I really needed to do is think, how much money do I need to make in my business, and how do I find the people, like a few people who can pay me a lot of money to do something that's really in my zone of genius. So I think if I started a business today, I would turn it upside down, and I'd be looking for like bigger like connections within that same industry, but bigger businesses who I could go in like with the finance director, role, and say, well, I've done all this in large corporate, let me come and be your expert at the table, helping you with your meetings. But because it's just about scaling, isn't it? If you've got someone paying you a small amount of money, but I think like just having that like crossover, and we've all got that. We've all got hobbies, and we all know people. There are probably, even if you've got kids and you think you never socialize anymore, there will have been something you've done in the past where you know people. So think about that first.
What I'm hearing is like you have got the skill set and you have the gift of connecting with people, so you merge these two together and turn it into a passionate business, and that's kind of, it helps you to niche down, and you just targeted one audience. It's kind of, it's also helps with messaging when you are targeting, and you can still help the other industries, but when you are targeted in one industry, because people will still come and ask you, a fashion designer will also come and ask you to do bookkeeping. But if you just focus in, because there are millions of people in one niche, you might think, but how many people will need my help? You will be surprised how many people will need your help.
Oh, absolutely. If you Google bookkeeper, you're going to find a massive list, loads of directories. And the only way you'll differentiate is by looking at what they what they're going to charge you. Look, and that's why we have this kind of low value challenge where people think, I'm not valuable, I need to undercut everyone and just go in at the minimum fee so I win the work. If, however, you were a creative and you're stuck with your tax return and you're like, oh, I need someone who like I can talk to, who gets me. If you were to search for bookkeeper for creatives, and there was, you had a really like great SEO on your website because you talk about creatives all the time, and like you said about your messaging being right. So this is one of the big wins really with niching. You're really focused on where you need to be. You don't go and try and do every breakfast networking meeting ever. You just go to the ones where your clients are. And if they come across your website, they can very quickly say, yes, this person's for me. So it's just getting really focused and being able to be clear about how you spend your time, because we're all time poor. Like, we haven't got time for doing every bit of marketing and hoping. We want to be found.
Yeah, I love that. So what would be your advice for someone who lacks confidence?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to push you out, like anyone who speaks to me, I'll push you out of your comfort zone. And I think in like the accounting and bookkeeping world, naturally we describe ourselves as introverts. I really think we do. I definitely think of myself as an introvert. If I've done lots of networking, I probably need to go and sit in a quiet room for an hour afterwards and calm down. But I think you have to really just step outside of those feelings and think, see yourself, like believe in yourself as an expert. If you go into a room full of creatives as the only finance person, the only person, even if you know like how to find out what expenses you can claim in your tax return because you know where it is on HMRC's website, you are an expert. Like, you don't need to know a lot. I think people always put this pressure on. I haven't done that before. Like, I haven't worked in that industry. Like I said about not working in practice before, we give ourselves all these excuses about why we're not good enough to be there. And that makes us stop believing in ourselves. But actually, if we can see that we know so much more than we think we do, but because for us, it's like on autopilot, we forget that we've had to learn this stuff. So we are experts. We've just got to believe in it. And you don't need to know a lot more. And, even just saying to someone, I don't know that, but let me go and check because I know where to look, or I know who to speak to, and I'll get back to you. That is like a way better answer for them than them just thinking, oh, I still don't know what to do about the massive problem I've got. So we've got to believe in ourselves.
I always say to all my clients when I talk to them, and like when they lack confidence, when they're not sure, and like you said, you feel like, "Ah, I don't know enough. You need to do another course, and you need to do another program. You need to do another school and another degree before you can do that." And there's never an end. But what I always say, your profile is stuck on somebody else's wall to become you. So you are an inspiration to somebody, and I'm sure we all have people we inspire. So what is teach as much as that, and when you get stuck, like you say, you'll know somebody who will be able to help them. This is why networking is so important, and this is why like clubs like yours exist, because like if there is one of your members doesn't know some particular subject, I'm sure they will come to this club and ask the other accountant to help their client.
It's finding the safe place, isn't it, where it's okay to
Yeah.
ask and feeling safe. And sometimes you've got to watch from the sidelines and see that other people feel it's safe. And then you're like, okay, the reactions they're getting are all right. I think I'm okay here. But I think you've got to find that place for yourself.
So know your value. Once you value yourself, everybody will see that in you. So it is so, I love it. Sorry, I love it. So I
Sometimes we say
bet
to people,
it's so good in your club and people being able to just talk with one another and sharing that knowledge and not knowing something and being able to just sit there and talk with people.
yeah, I think like sometimes someone will share something really raw, and not everyone there is going to have the answer, but just the support and the love is so helpful. One thing you can do if you're really struggling to see your value is go back and look at a testimonial that someone's written about you, or ask for some testimonials if you haven't yet. Like, speak to some clients that you've got, or people that you've worked with in the past, or even people that are connections from a job you've had before. Like, ask them to tell you what it is about the way you work that brings them value, because if you see it written down by someone else, then you start to see the things that you don't notice about, because we're not tuned into this all the time. We're always thinking about the next course, the next thing we need to learn. We forget how far we've come, and the insight you get from someone else's feedback is incredible. So I think that's a really good exercise for anyone who's stuck with this.
I love that. I mean, I keep hearing it, which is, I totally agree with you, how like being a key person of influence in your industry, in your area is very important. So what would be, for someone who is a key person of influence in your area, to somebody what would be your tip for them to become a key person of influence in their industry?
So we've spoken about niching, and I think the real, you can't instantly be like known on TV as like the expert finance accountant bookkeeper. It's not going to happen. What you need to do is think about this niche, think about the audience that really need your support right now, where those clients are. And you might already have some clients in this particular area, and then look at what we talked about your expertise, where that crosses over with a network that you have, and how you really add value to those people. Think about what that value is, and think about what the questions are that they're worrying about at night. Because if there's a particular challenge and pain point they've got, the way you can become the like go-to person is to really tune into that and start just focusing on that. Just focus on that pain point and create content in whatever way, and talk to people who can help you raise your profile and get in front of more of those kind of people you want to be in front of, talking about this one particular thing. I think getting known for one thing is essential. So like in the bookkeeping and accounting world, there's a thing coming up at the moment, making tax digital, you might have heard of. And if you're self-employed, the way we do tax returns in the future is going to change. So right now you do one annual return, they have to be submitted by the end of January. In the future, we're going to have to do 4 quarterly returns, and then there'll be an end of year return that we do as well. That is going to turn everything upside down about the way people believe in like what they have to do for the year end, and also about the kind of support they need. But I think a lot of sole traders don't know this is coming. There are like landlords who are affected, lots of people who have to do a tax return don't know they're going to have to do this in the future. So if you decide that your area
how soon is that?
You need to be thinking about it for next year. 2023 is when you will start keeping new digital records. So you see, this is something that's on the horizon that I don't think people are prepared for yet. So what you could do if you decided that your real expertise was tax returns, making tax digital, like you're all over the updates, you know everything, you've got a great piece of software that can do the returns, and you've also got maybe a niche of, let's say, creative freelancers who don't like doing their accounts, that crosses over and creates you this brilliant zone of genius where you can be the go-to expert for this new making tax digital thing that's happening. And you can start creating content about every single thing they need to know about that. So what it is, that's a piece of content. What the dates are, that's a piece of content. What the new returns are going to look like. What software you can use. Is this software better or is this software better? Will the expenses I claim be the same? How will I pay my taxes? There's so much. So you can then brainstorm around that and create content however you're comfortable, so that you can start to become known for showing up consistently, solving the problem that is, the thing they're worrying about, because they will be worrying about it in the future, or just even raising awareness that is going to be something they need to know about. You'll become the go-to person doing this. So I think that it can be that simple. It's identifying that pain point and where you're a specialist, and then getting out there with the content and being consistent.
Gorgeous. I love it. I know we talked all about bookkeepers and accountants, but all the wisdom that you shared could be applied to all across any industries. It's like talking about the key questions, the pain points of your ideal clients and the people you want to serve. It is very, very important to it's like everything you shared is so juicy content. I love it. Thank you, Zoe. It's so good. I can hear some of the listeners are actually going, yeah, but once we share all the content, everything they need to know on our platforms, become the key person influencers. But at what point we're going to turn them into paying clients? That's what they will go.
People don't want to do this stuff for themselves. Okay. So like I wrote a book called Know Your Numbers about how to do bookkeeping. Literally, this is how you do it. This is what you have to do. These are the dates. This is the software. This is why it's
giving them everything they need to know.
Everything you want. And actually that's helpful, because there are people who will say, I'm not ready to pay for this. I don't think I have the funds. There will always be someone who doesn't want to pay for it. But the more time they spend with you, getting to know you through reading your book, watching your content, looking at your YouTube videos, reading a blog, whatever you decide to do, the more trust you build up with them. And at some point in 3 years' time, they will know you're there. And
Yeah.
they'll reach out to you. Now, there'll be other people who pick up the book and go, can't, not doing that, and they will just ring you up. So
That's
you
right.
know, I think it's like always being clear whenever you're putting content out there, because also like people are busy, they're not going to see everything you do. I think people see like 10% of your content or something on Facebook, so
That's
you've
right.
got to keep putting the same message out all the time. So they might pick up on one thing and be like, oh my god, and then they're like, look back and they'll see there are 20 videos about it, and they haven't got time to do that, but they know they have a problem. So always be clear on like call to action. What do you want people to do next? One very clear: get in touch. If you need support with this, I do this every day. Please reach out. I'm happy to have a chat with you. And then they know that they can talk to you. Like, just make it like, I think one of the challenges with being a key person of influence is that you maybe kind of put yourself up here and people think, oh, that person isn't for me. Maybe I need to find someone else who's a bit cheaper or something, you know. So always make sure you're like approachable and that people know that they can.
Accessible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So it's been such a great I could talk to you for hours, and the great nuggets that you shared. I'm sure our listeners will find so much value in this chat.
Oh,
It's
my
been
pleasure.
so good. It's not just, you can tell that you are the key person of influence in your area, and how you're committed to help all the accountants and bookkeepers in and create that safe place with your club. But all the information you shared can actually be used across any industries, and it can be guidance to so many people. And what you shared, it's so true. And a lot of the coaches out there would say the same thing: consistency, give value, add value to your clients, and answer their questions. Give them what is their pain points, and give them their answers. Because once you do that, you create trust, and that trust follows up, and it becomes your paying clients that you feel like you're serving. Can you hear my son at the background?
A little bit, bless him. I love it.
Oh, so Zoe, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you last question. What does confidence mean to you?
Oh, I suppose confidence means to me being able to own your space, know that you know your stuff. We don't believe in ourselves enough. So, but just start to very gradually realize that you do, and own your space, own that niche expertise area, and people will see that you are the person to speak to.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Zoe. It's
Oh, my
been
pleasure.
absolute pleasure to have you, and I will share all your information on our show notes. And thank you for your generosity and being here, being
Oh,
part of
thank you.
my community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.